Good morning and a very warm welcome to you today, and welcome back to the third in our series of Literacy Unlocked. Today's session is called Are You Listening? So I hope that you are listening, and I hope that you've enjoyed the previous two sessions, because this builds on what we've done before. So let's have a look at what we did before. In the first week we looked at learning, and we decided it's been able to do or to know something more than previously. We looked at facilitators for learning, things that help children to learn. Did you remember these? I'm sure you did. Build upon previous knowledge or skill. Relevance, is it relevant to the person who's listening? I hope this is relevant to you. And is the activity motivational? Do you want to join in? Then we looked at indicators for good literacy. These are all from research, and these are also things that are missing for children who struggle with literacy. Not all of them, but if they have one or two missing, then these are the areas you need to focus on. Last week we looked at 5 cognitive indicators for good literacy. So these were comprehension, paying attention and focus, which is linked to listening today. Sequencing and prediction, being able to put things in an order. Automaticity, which leads to fluency. Once you can do something automatically, then your brain no longer needs to focus on that, and it can move on to the next thing. And memory, we need to have a good memory to remember what we've learnt. Otherwise, we haven't learnt it if we can't remember. Is that true? I don't know. Sometimes I'm sure I learnt something a long time ago, but I can't remember what it is. And we also looked at the importance of visual skills to literacy. And then I asked myself a question for you, really. What are your expectations of this session? So I thought about what you might say. And I thought, I think you want to build on what we've done before. So that's what we're going to do. These are these. I thought, you expect it to be relevant to you. So your early years educators, is this relevant to early years? Relevance, yes. And is it motivational? Well, I hope so. I hope you'll learn lots today and enjoy the activities. Here we go. I'm adding in a little bit extra. There's always something extra I want to tell you. So one is how important you are. As early years educators, it is the most vital part of a child's education, because if these foundations are not laid, then children can't go on to learn through reading. So if they don't learn to read and write, they're at a severe disadvantage for the rest of their school life, and possibly the rest of life. It's very difficult to catch up later. So you are the people who can make such a huge difference. And have fun while you're doing it. You have the best job in the world. Also, I wanted to mention links. So each of the indicators on the diagram, they're not just individual things that we should just be doing on their own. These are all linked together. So you will see today that listening is obviously linked to focus and paying attention. If you don't focus and pay attention, you can't be listening. And then I found this little quote I wanted to share with you. It's from Dyslexia Awareness. It says, it takes 4 times as many resources to help a student to resolve a literacy problem in year 4 than it does in year 1. Early identification of reading difficulties is important. Well, my view is that you can see these difficulties, you can observe these difficulties even before this. So if children are having difficulties with the indicators that are on the diagram that I've shown you, then we need to be doing something about these. And this is something that you can do. You can make this massive difference. I just wanted to add that in there. Okay, so we'll get on with today's session. So we're going to look at the difference between listening and hearing. And look at this term, speech in noise. You might have heard of it or not. We're going to explain the difference between reception, receiving sound, and perception of it, what it makes us feel or do. and look at how we can help children to discriminate sounds, because these are important for literacy, if you remember from last week. And of course, look at activities to promote listening skills. Did you look at the activity? It was, can you walk on tiptoe? Did you see the video? And do you have a pen and paper? I forgot to mention it. If not, grab one quickly. So I thought you might like this little picture here. And it says, I can look directly at someone, nod when they're talking, maybe even throw in a yeah, and still not hear a single word they said. So we've got the word here. Does it really mean here? Or does it mean I didn't listen? How do we know? So hearing and listening. So we can say that hearing is being able to perceive a sound through our ears. Children who have problems with listening, not with listening, but problems with hearing, sometimes due to childhood infections or having something like glue ear, they have a problem with hearing, and you can tell this because sometimes they don't sound the beginnings of their words. This is because they don't hear the beginnings of the words. So they need medical help, maybe grommets fitting, something like that if it's quite severe. So make sure that you're looking carefully at the children that you're with and taking notice of what they can do and not do. So hearing is to perceive sound. We receive the sound through our ears and other ways we'll see in a minute. So we can have active listening and passive listening. Maybe passive listening is just hearing. So active listening, how do we know that someone is actively listening? Can you see that they're listening? I have some suggestions here. They're ignoring distractions, focusing on what's being said, maintaining eye contact, smiling, nodding, engaging, maybe saying, yes, I think that as well, asking questions. And then I've highlighted what they're actually doing, or maybe they're listening for the details. So here's an example of my non-listening. Maybe this happens to you as well. So for example, if I've maybe got someone round the house and I'm offer them a cup of tea. So I'm boiling the kettle, making a cup of tea and holding a conversation with them at the same time. And then while I'm making the tea, so I've got two things going on in my brain. And then I say, how many sugars do you want? And they answer. I know they've answered. And then I look at the sugar, I go, oh, what did they say? Because I actually wasn't focusing on the answer that they gave me. This is one of my examples here. Oops, sorry. Here, how many sugars? Oh, 2, sorry. And then I have to ask again. It's very embarrassing. Or when someone tells you their name and you know they've just said it and you're like, what was it? Because your brain was maybe somewhere else concentrating on doing something different and it didn't put that to the forefront. So we want children to listen to us as educators and focus on what we're saying. How do we do that? Another example is if you have music in the background. I can hear music playing. I'm not necessarily listening to it, but I know it's there. I can hear it, but I'm not focusing on what it is. There are 3 more types of listening here. There's focused listening, where you're thinking about the quality of the sound. Is it a little bit fuzzy? So you're concentrating on, can you hear that sound? The second is causal. Where does that noise come from? Oh, so that was someone shouting. So you're not concentrating on what they said. You know there was a noise and you know it was a person shouting. And then semantic listening. We're listening for meaning. This is what we want our children to be doing, listening to us and comprehending what we're saying. So we've already mentioned here a couple of the cognitive skills from last week. We want children to focus, pay attention, and understand what we're saying when they're listening. So I'm going to go away just for a very short time. I'd like you to list, this opposite really of here, I want you to list your observations of children who are not listening. How do you know when children are not listening? Okay, you write them down. I'll be back in a second. Okay. Okay, did you write some down? Were they similar to these? The other way around, children not listening. So are they being distracted, playing with something, looking down, looking away, not maintaining eye contact, looking a little glazed, not showing comprehension, not nodding, looking away in their own world, maybe even getting up, walking away whilst you're speaking? What can we do to help children who do this? Another thing is speech in noise. Okay, don't know if you've heard of this. It means being able to, obviously from what it says, being able to listen and focus on what somebody is saying while there is a surrounding noise. Now, as teachers, I'm sure you have lots of noise, and there are lots of times when you're trying to speak to children, but there's a lot of noise going on around you. So this is what we're going to look at here. Children must be able to listen to the teacher, often over sounds of others. I've included a little picture here. This is a teacher and her KG3 children at age 5 to 6. And they're doing, it's a listening song. It's very good to help listening skills. I'll sing you it in a second. And it's about, they're all sat on a bus. It's about a bus. So here is the bus. Little boy has the bus. Have a look at these children. Do you think they're listening? Most of them are looking, some are waving, so they're engaging. This little boy's expression here, I'm not sure whether he's listening, or maybe he's thinking about something else. How do we know? It's very difficult sometimes to tell. I once had a music session, and the little boy didn't join in the circle at all. In fact, he sat in another part of the hall completely. And after 3 sessions, his mum nearly decided not to come. However, after a while, we heard him singing all the songs and actually joining in, even though he was distant. So although we thought he wasn't looking and listening, he was. So children sometimes are listening when you don't think they're listening. So you have to think about how do you know when your children are listening and taking things in? Maybe you don't find out till a lot later. So this little song here is you have the children go and stand at a pretend bus stop, so that each stand in a separate place on their own. Sometimes if they're little or shy, they need to stand with a friend at their bus stop. But I try to get them to find their own space and stand somewhere. They're standing at a bus stop. And then I sing the song, and when I sing their name, then they come and sit on the bus. So you can have, here we had the lady here, the teacher, is the driver. But you can have one of the children be the driver, and you have a conductor at the back. So you make a space where the children have to come and sit. So they come and sit in order when you call their names. So this is the little song. So they're standing at the bus stops and you sing. I went for a ride on a bus today, and who do you think I saw? Jamie. And then he comes and runs and gets on the bus. And on he got, and off we went, bumpety, 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 bump. And the children have got to bump along on the bus, and the person driving the bus has got to pretend they're driving, and the others are listening for their names. And who do you think we saw? Jennifer. And on she got, and off we went, bumpety, 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 bump. And who do you think we saw? Alan. And on he got, and off we went, bumpety, 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 bump. And then you can just carry on for the number of children on your bus. And at the end, you go bumpety, 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 bump. And it's very good for listening. And you will find that all the children are listening because they're waiting for their name so that they can get on the bus. Okay, on with speeching noise. I have here lots of research references. Now, the first one, this was in Finland, and the researchers here looked at children who go to what we would call them music groups in the UK. In Finland, they call them music schools. And these children go to, it's like going to a music group, but the children stay there, a bit like a nursery, without their parents. And they join in musical activities and sometimes literacy, drawing, or writing their name activities afterwards as well, or something related to a theme. So it could be like a pirate theme. They were singing pirate songs, and then they write colouring a pirate ship, something like that. And these researchers found that the children who went to these music sessions were much better at discriminating sounds. That seems very logical. So it's an excellent thing to do. And then these researchers here, they found that people who have had music training are much better at perceiving speech in noise, or speech in noise. And again, this doesn't seem like rocket science. If you can tune into musical sounds, then maybe you can then tune into language sounds. It's the same skill. And then these researchers here found that people who were good at auditory processing, they're good at processing sounds, are good at literacy. These all seem very logical. And then, of course, there's a huge amount of research that says children who are good at phonological awareness, perceiving sounds in language, are good at literacy. So you can see here the link. In 1993, Lamb and Gregory said that discrimination of musical sounds is related to reading. There's been lots of research since, and a mountain of research saying that there is a correlation between children who are good at musical activities and partake in musical activities and those who are good at literacy. But of course, no one can find a causal relationship. We will look at why this is the case in a minute. So being able to do music and engage in musical activities does not make children able to read and write. But there is a huge amount of research saying that children who are good at musical activities are good at literacy. Why? We'll have a quick look. Music training improves awareness of sounds. This is here. The awareness of sounds in language is vital to success in literacy. So it's all about listening and focusing upon what is being said or played. Sound. So this is reception of sound and perception of sound. So reception is how we receive it, and perception is what we do about it. What does it make us feel? What does it make us do? Do we have to move? So sound is received through our ears, we know this, also through vibration. And then a lady that I met in Aberdeen University, she's a double doctor. She's a medical doctor and also holds a PhD, Angela Miller. She was researching another way of receiving sound, which was through airwaves. So she said that we also receive sound through airwaves, and it has an effect upon our body. So she said that when we're hearing sound, there are very, very tiny movements in someone's face, on their skin. So it is actually having an impact upon our body, the fact that the sound is coming through the air. Very fascinating. And then we have here, how do we perceive sound? So what does it make us do? We've got here psychoacoustics, how psychoacoustics works. So psychoacoustics is the effect on our body. What does the sound make us do? So here you hear a sound or you receive a sound. Those messages about the sound travel to your brain. So maybe it's an angry tiger chasing you, and then your brain says, do something about this sound, run. So it might be a nice relaxing sound. Your brain might say, go to sleep. The reason for singing lullabies to children, send them to sleep. So how we perceive sound, again, is very important. Lots of different types of sound, and we react to them in different ways. So we need to learn about sound. So we've got movement helps to consolidate language sounds, like jump, splash, onomatopoeia, here with your words, splash. I'm going to sing you a little song again. I can't help myself. I have a little picture of a girl splashing in a puddle, and you sing, if you see a puddle, you have to go splash. You have to go splash. You have to go splash. If you see a puddle, you have to go splash. That's what puddles are for. It's a nice little song. And obviously you can have different pitches, and the children move differently in response to the different pitches, the different sounds that you're making. They've got movement, they jump, they shout splash, and they splash. All helping to consolidate the language and the sounds, and obviously to focus listening skills as well, because they're listening to what you're asking them to do. There's prosody, we mentioned last week, in music and in language. So there are variations in tone, variations in our expression, our intonation, our stress on certain notes in music or certain syllables in words. And the different sounds that music makes, we've got major and minor keys. When music is played in a minor key, it's very melancholy and makes us feel a little sad. It's like sad music. And the reason for the difference in these sounds is only the gap, or the interval, if you like, between the two sounds. There's a smaller gap between the sounds. It's like when you use the black notes on the piano. These are used in minor keys. So these make sad sounds. I wonder why. Why do these make us feel sad? Because the sounds are closer together. Whereas if you just use all the white notes, they're very jolly sounds, and they're called major keys when we just use all the white notes. Why do they make us feel differently? Oh, sorry, I'm finished there. Very strange. And then consider the motoric use of language. So we use language, things like music to my ears. Don't know, just leave it That's what happens when you're doing these things live. I should have taken it off the hook. So we use language metaphorically, music to my ears. We think about music as a positive thing, something that we enjoy. Sorry, it won't ring again now. So how we perceive sound and how it makes us feel. Okay, so think about a child listening to the sounds that are around them. You know, do you play music for your children? Do you do dancing? Do you do painting to music? Have you ever tried that? I've seen that in the classroom. It's very interesting. So if you play music and you give children paint or crayons and they can make a picture, you'll find that the very, very loud music, they've got big scrawly shapes. And for the quiet music, they just have smaller, more gentle looking shapes. It's interesting, something to do if you've not done it before. So discriminating sound, we've got this same bit of research here that we had earlier on the other slide. And it's just a question for you. Do you think it is possible to assume that an ability to discriminate musical sounds is a transferable skill to language? Because the research suggests that it is. And I think this is also the case. So therefore, this is a very good reason for doing musical activities with your children, because it helps to focus their listening and ability to discriminate between sounds. So music and language can be both described as languages. So we've got spoken language and then the language of music. Here are some of the correlations between them, the similarities between music and language. So that we receive both of them and we produce both of them. We receive sound and we make sound. What is the difference between music and language? There's a good question. They both have prosody. They both have rhythm. Do, 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 do. They both have a written form. They both create emotional effects. They're both able to make us feel things. Happy, sad, joyous. They both communicate. They're a method of communicating. They both contain phrasing. They both have structure. They have sequence, and we can predict maybe what's next. We can predict when an end is coming in a piece of music or in a story. So how do we help children to discriminate musical sounds? Well, we can use instruments. So for example, do you know what this is the sound of? It's a very short one, this one. It's my rainmaker. Can you tell what the sound is? Can you tell what this sound is? Instruments don't have to be expensive bought things. They're very easy to make. And they make a nice lot of sound. This one. You may know that's a tambourine. So teaching children about the different sounds, being able to name different instruments and listen to what these instruments sound like is a very good way to hone listening skills. Can children tell the difference between what something is made of? So for example, what do you think that is making that sound compared to this one? First one was made of wood. Second one is made of metal. What about this one? Think about the difference playing an instrument made of plastic. It's a very harsh sound. But there's no reason children shouldn't have these as well as instruments made of other materials, so that you can talk about the difference and listen to the difference in sounds. And why? Why would something made of wood have such a different sound? It's to do with the vibration. You can bring in science as well. And why do each of these make such a different sound? Because they're different lengths. So lots to talk about, lots of listening skills if you use instruments. Oops. So you sing songs, sing with instruments. And what about body sounds? So for example, you can do clapping, you can do stamping. Can anybody do that? Popping with the finger, I can't do that. You can make sort of clicking noises, you can whistle. Think of different sounds you can make. I know some children can do this thing with their arm, I can't do that either. So other songs that you might do are, for example, you could do I Hear Thunder. So you need something to make a loud sound. Maybe this, I'm not sure which I'm going to use. Here we go. I hear thunder, I hear thunder, hark don't you, hark don't you. And what quiet sound. Pitter patter raindrops, pitter patter raindrops, I'm wet through, so are you. And if you can get children to make a loud noise with their voice and also with an instrument, and then make a quiet voice and then be quiet with their instrument, then they're learning to differentiate with the sounds that they make. So they're having to listen internally, they're internalizing these sounds in order to make them. Okay, your listening skills. I just wondered if there was another, oh yeah, there was something else I was going to show you here. Another good one for listening skills, I'm back with my little bricks here. Here's you can do shake and shake and shake together, shake and shake and shake and stop. And again, you've got prediction there, you know stop's coming. Tap and tap together, tap and stop. It's another nice little one for listening there. So most children's songs and action rhymes involve listening. And then you need to listen as well to the children to see, are they pronouncing those words correctly? Have they heard those words? Did they listen intently to the words that you were saying? So we've got instruments, singing, body sounds, all help children to discriminate musical sounds. And then ultimately, these will help children to be able to discriminate language sounds. So can you remember the term that was used to describe these three levels of something? Can you remember what it was? The word had phono, meaning sound, and logo, meaning spoken word. Phono-logo. Phonological awareness. So, and we said it was at 3 levels. Syllabic level, rhyme, we had onset and rhyme, and phonemic level. Do you remember how many phonemes there were? 44. Lots of phonemes, a lot of sounds in the language. So, focusing on language sounds now we're going to look at. There's such a lot of research showing that musical activities help children to become literate. So what has happened in a lot of counties One, for example, is Aberdeenshire, is they've put musical activities in there. So the council have paid people to go and do musical activities with children. So one of these was in Aberdeenshire, and they paid people from Kodai. It's a teaching music system, a certain way of teaching music to children. And so they put these in various early years settings around the county. And the idea was this helps children to become more literate. But of course, although there's a correlation between children doing musical activities and children being good at literacy, there's no cause. So teaching children to play a piano does not teach them to read. I'm going to look at the reasons why not. Can you think of some? I'll let you go and think of some for a couple of seconds, and then I'll come back with mine. Okay, you write them down. I'll be back in a jiff. Okay, what did you write down? They're not the same. This is why. Musical sounds are not language sounds. They sound when you're helping children to focus on differences in sound, but musical sounds and language sounds are different. And music does not map language onto letters. It doesn't map to symbols. You can write music, but these are not letters, not quite the same. However, music does train children to attend to sound. So focus and sound discrimination are two of the indicators for literacy success that we have on the diagram. So these are excellent things to do with children. I'm definitely promoting the use of musical activities with children. But bear in mind, this is not teaching children to read and write, but it's promoting the skills that they need as a foundation. So what can we do? What can you do? Have you done listening walks with your children? Very nice. So it's a very nice quiet time because no one's allowed to speak. So you can take pen and paper. Each child has pen and paper, and they can write down something that they hear. They can write a picture, draw a picture of things that they hear or not, if they can remember. And you can do the same. So you set off on a little walk, either in your setting, around the building, or outside. It's a nice day, go outside. So help the children to listen. Don't speak to them, but just say they have to listen and write down or draw a picture or try to remember things that they heard when they were out. When they come back, you have to tell you what they were. So you might hear things as you're leaving the building, like a squeaky door, footsteps, somebody else talking, children in another room, somebody typing on a computer, washing machine going, a fridge making the clunky noise they sometimes make, water cooler making a gurgly sound, somebody running a tap. Outside you might hear the birds, cars going past, people chatting, leaves rustling, children's walking, somebody's walking stick. And then you come back. Don't go for too long because it's very hard for children to remember all the such a big amount. And then you come back and you discuss, what did you hear? What did we hear on that walk? And then the children were really having to tune in and listen to something. And again, you notice the children who can remember lots of things that they heard, who heard lots of things, and others that are struggling. Were they struggling to listen? Or are they struggling now to remember what they heard? Sometimes you have to give children time. Children need more time just to process the thoughts that are in their head that they're waiting to tell you. So make sure that you give each child time to put those thoughts together and give you their answers. Another one is read stories, my favourite thing. I've got here a lovely book, Grandma's Magical Story Time. And it's full of lots of traditional stories, like Jack and the Beanstalk, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, The Elves and the Shoemaker, a lovely little story. And it's got modern things like the Velveteen Rabbit. Children can't tell their own stories unless they know about stories and they've heard stories told. It's not the same as watching a video because there's no narration to a video. So children, and also you can't create your own pictures on a video. But if you're telling a story then the child has to create their own images. This is one reason why you need picture books with children, so that they get used to seeing pictures and then they can create their own pictures. Again, it's about creating experiences for children. So children who haven't seen pictures can't create these pictures in their mind. What does a dragon look like? If you haven't seen a picture of a big green dragon, the dragon's always green, or can they be red or blue? But if children haven't seen them, how can you create them? You can't even create a new monster if you don't know what a monster is or what a monster might look like. Is the Gruffalo a monster, or is he a nice friendly thing? But you have to create these images, create these stories in children's minds for them. So watching videos, watching films is not enough. Read stories. Oh, also I was going to tell you about musical stories. Got a book here, Sing Me a Story. So lots of songs that we sing tell a story. So for example, here we've got Humpty Dumpty. What is the story of Humpty Dumpty? What happens to him in the end? What about Hickory Dickory Dock? What happens to the mouse? What time does the clock strike? And what does the mouse do when the clock strikes the hour? You can have musical stories as well. How wonderful, along with props and instruments. Great time, but children are learning. Play instruments together, identify materials, which we mentioned earlier. Also an activity I do with children is like the Music Man. So I sing Humpty Dumpty because Humpty Dumpty is my mascot. So I sing, I am Humpty Dumpty, I come from down my way, and I can play. What can you play? You can play anything made of wood. So the children who have got an instrument made of wood can play. And then I can play anything made of wood, made of wood, made of wood. And then the next one you do, anything made of plastic. And then only the children with a plastic instrument can play. Or made of metal. Only the children with a metal instrument can play. And of course they have to listen for when it's their turn. And again, take notice of the children who can do this and who are listening carefully. Okay. Oops, sorry, I'm clicking the wrong place. So sing songs and reciting rhymes are excellent for children's listening skills and also for their language skills, for their cognitive skills. This is why we promote singing songs and rhymes. But remember, it's not only about singing the songs and rhymes. It's not about putting on a CD and just listening to the music. It's about all the other things that you talk about the song. So when you introduce a song, what are you going to say? It's like the Hurry, Hurry, Drive the Engine. So you can talk about the fire engine and the fire station and the clothes, what people wear, what people do for a job, what people wear to work. Whatever it is, the song that you're talking about and singing about, you could talk about that song. So if it was Little Mousy Brown, you can talk about mice. And maybe, what does a mouse eat? Or what about the cats that chase mice? What are mice scared of? What are you scared of? So lots and lots of different topics can come into any song at all that you can think of, or rhymes. Okay, the next one is make shakers. I used to have camera film, little containers, like little cylinders. I don't know if anyone remembers those. They were little black cylinders about this big with little black lids on. And inside I paired the cylinders up. So I put maybe 2 beans in one cylinder, 2 beans in another, and then 2 peas or 3 peas in one, 3 peas in another. So they were matched pairs. Cocktail sticks, lentils, little beads, rice, pasta, anything that would make a slightly different noise. They were quite close in sound. And actually when I asked children to pair them, it was quite a difficult exercise. It's quite difficult for me and I made them. But again, very good for listening skills because you have to listen really, really carefully for the differences in the sound. And I also did 2 with nothing in at all. So those were easy to pair. And then I had 2 with I had a round wooden ball in 2 of them, and that was very loud. So they were easy to pair. So if we got those 2 first, and then the other ones took a little bit more time. But that's a really good listening exercise as well with children, especially if you're not very sure if they're listening very well. Another one is if you have a cymbal. You know, the big symbols that you often have in schools, and you ask children to stand in a line, and then you bang the cymbal, and the children have to walk when they hear the sound, just walk. And when they no longer hear the sound, they need to stop. So keep walking as long as you can hear the sound. And then you'll see who can hear the sound longest. Sometimes, of course, the children will just stop because somebody else has stopped. But it's a good thing to do, to watch the children and think who can actually hear these sounds, who is good at hearing the sounds and who is maybe struggling. And then identify these children who are struggling and see if you can help them in the areas they're struggling in. If it's listening skills, then you need to do more with these children. So our last, I've gone over again, another 10 minutes. It's the same every week. We'll just say it's a 40-minute session now, at least. So if you watched the video, can you walk on tiptoe? It's very good. If you didn't, I'll give you an idea what it was. I'm not going to do the actions because I'm not standing up. So it's, can you walk on tiptoe as softly as a cat? Can you stamp along the road? Stamp, stamp, just like that. Can you take great long strides, just like a giant can? Or walk ever so slowly, like a little bent old man? So the children have to listen very carefully so that they're doing like whatever the song is telling them, the rhyme is telling them to do. So they first of all have to be quiet and walk on tiptoe. Can they walk very softly? And can they learn the rhyme and then speak softly? And then can they stomp? And can they shout as they stomp? And then you're elongating the words. So you're playing with words, making them long strides, just like a giant. So again, you've got an imagination of being a giant. Can you be a giant? I would struggle to be a giant because I'm quite small. Or can you walk very slowly? And then we've got little. We've got all our adjectives: little, bent, and old to describe this man. So we're not just saying he's a little man, he's an old man. We've got a little, bent, old man. So you're helping children to learn about constructing a sentence and being descriptive and how they can use these adjectives in their own language and own language production. So I hope you've had lots of useful information there today and learnt a few more little songs and rhymes. Please remember, if you want all these songs and rhymes, they're freely available. They're on YouTube, and you can find them via Sounds and Symbols on Facebook. There are 4 videos, and they're at least 30 minutes each video, so there must be about 60 activities in total. You can just play the video and join in and play along. There are instructions, obviously, as we go, so you'll get the idea of those. Please learn them and just do them yourselves with your children. What great fun. I tell you, you have the best job in the world. So what have we done today? We've looked at hearing and listening. I want you to think about your children's listening skills and what can you do to promote these skills, to get your children to be better listeners. How do you know they're listening? We've looked at this term, speech in noise. Which of your children are good at detecting speech in noise, which don't take any notice if there's a noisy background? These children need more help. Explain reception. So receiving sound, remember there were 3 ways: vibration, through your ear, and through sound waves. If you want to look up the lady who's writing about that, her name is Angela Miller. She's from Aberdeen University. 2016 was her research, if you Google it. And perception of sound. How do we perceive sound? Do sounds make us frightened? Do sounds make us happy? How do we feel when we hear different sounds? What do we do when we hear different sounds? And then discriminating sounds. So we need to teach children to be able to detect differences in sound. Talk about sounds. Anything that you're teaching children, you need to talk about and add add richness to the activities that you're doing by describing things. Okay, so describe the sounds. Where do they come from? Are they scary? Are they quiet? Are they loud? And then, of course, we've had a variety of activities to promote listening skills, and we had Can You Walk on Tiptoe as our one for this week. Next week, you will find 5 fat peas, a nice bit of alliteration there, and that is on the Facebook page. You will find it there, but you'll also get a link next Thursday to it on YouTube, or you can look at it beforehand if you like. You might already know that rhyme. So next week we're going to look at language skills, development of spoken language. Unlike literacy, language is an innate skill. It's natural. Children can learn several languages. I wish I had when I was little. If I knew what I knew now, I would have taken my children around the world, I think, and tried to get them to learn different languages while they were very young. So it's called Chatterbox next week. So it's all about how to promote spoken language. Again, this is very important because it's something that has changed in the UK, and more children going into early years settings are not able to speak and construct sentences. And if you can't do this, then obviously that impacts upon later literacy. It's something very important. I'm going to ask you if you have any questions. We have a Q&A. I don't have the Q&A. I don't have the Q&A button. My Q&A is not enabled. I apologize profusely. It was last week. I don't know why it's not here now. Is it in somewhere else? No, I don't have the Q&A feature. Okay, very sorry. I'll make sure it's enabled for next week. I don't know where it's gone. You can always email me there's an email address on here, webinar@melsis.co.uk, and I will respond to any email questions that you might have. I apologise that we don't have the Q&A function. I have no idea why. I hope that you've enjoyed this week. I've certainly enjoyed you being here. I just want to tell you now we have people from 6 different countries around the world, which is absolutely amazing. And I would also like to say thank you very much for your wonderful feedback that I've had from many of you, which is just lovely. I'm so glad that you're enjoying it, and I hope that you join us again next week, and look forward to being with you then. And we'll definitely have the Q&A on next week. Thank you very much, and bye-bye, and enjoy your weekend and have a good week.